Hey, this is Daryl and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I interview Matt Sinkovitz, Making Peace with Porn. Matt has been working with men for many years now, helping them break through this addiction. Yeah, it's an addiction. Porn can be an addiction, and there's so much insight in this interview that it makes it a must watch. So whether it's porn or maybe you have an addiction to something else, it could be TV, it could be food, it could be drugs, alcohol, give this video, this interview, a watch because there's great insight. As men, if we're wanting to be rock solid, we're wanting to live our best life, give our gifts, and things like this, porn addiction or any other things that are not healthy for us, are holding us back. So if you're wanting to be that strong husband, that fun-loving, strong father, take your career or business or your profession to the next level, make an impact in the community, just enjoy your life. Man, it's okay that we have problems, we have challenges. What's not okay is addressing them, facing them head on and say, this is time for me to create change. And we have insight. I talked to Matt about men who give it a shot. They try to create change, but inevitably they go back to what they're addicted to. So we talk about how do we not have that loop happen and how do you break through that. So go ahead and continue to watch the great interview, and there's some resources that are available below the video here, so check those out as well. As men, we need resources. It's okay to say, you know what, I need a coach. I need someone that's going to be in my corner to help me take my life to the next level, to live a high life, a life with standards and a code of conduct that you're proud of, that makes you feel like an incredible person on this earth, making your difference and living a life with purpose. So go ahead and give it a watch, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks a lot. Well, I want to welcome everybody to Real Men, Real Conversations. This is Daryl, and I am your host. And I'm very excited and honored to have someone to talk to. I'm usually just talking to myself on the podcast, but today I have Matt Sinkovitz with me. And Matt has a pretty cool background, which he did send me a bio, but instead of reading through that, we'll just jump in. Today's focus, which when I started this podcast, Real Men, Real Conversations, I really wanted to have real conversations, conversations that men probably aren't having with other men. And, that was also my motivation to have a podcast is men tend to keep things in. I'm generalizing right now, but from my experience of coaching for 16 plus years and, working with men and women, that's where that's coming from. That statement of men keep things in and keep them to themselves. That's where it's coming from. So today, making peace with porn is our topic. And I'm excited to be with you here, Matt. You got a really cool background. Why don't we just start with that? I know you sent me a nice bio, but I didn't really feel like I want to read it. Why don't you just kind of highlight, your background and kind of what got you to a place to speak very authentically about maybe a taboo subject, So why don't we just start with that?
Sure, brother. Do you want me to just kind of give you my full kind of quick background?
Sure.
Just kind of
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
sure. Sure. So my name is Matt Sinkovitz. I'm coming from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and 38 years old currently. And I was raised in the Christian church, and grew up, like in church, 4 days a week kind of thing. Grew up in the Pentecostal church, very heavily influenced by a religious setting, a religious background. Grew up in missions work and prison work with my family. And
Wow.
when I was young, I went to China with my mom with a group of missionaries. And some of my earliest memories were growing up visiting inmates and stuff like that in prisons. And
Wow.
my parents still run a large prison ministry in the state of Pennsylvania. So always involved in that kind of work throughout my life. So introduced to missions work from an early age. And I would say, late teens, early 20s kind of fell away from church a little bit in spiritual walk, just unanswered questions and trying to figure things out for myself. And also around that time, mid 20s or so, I was in a professional career. I was in the hotel industry, and then ultimately transitioned into real estate, and found myself in just a really kind of dark place, heavy and suicidal, and just really unhappy with life and unhappy with myself. And also pornography had been a big part of my life, since my early teens. Like a lot of young boys introduced to me, innocently, like a lot of us, maybe finding the Playboy or the Penthouse, or if a friend had a videotape or something like that, he'd let you borrow, whatever you could get your hands on. Ultimately, we had dial-up internet in the house, and that was, kind of end of high school, late teens for me when I was really introduced to that. But pornography had always been a part of my life as well, and I found myself mid 20s or so in that dark place I was speaking about there. And it was at that time I was really desiring to find a way out, and what I had been given wasn't really answering the questions that I needed answered for myself. So I ended up really looking into mindfulness and meditation, and that ultimately led me to a path of studying Buddhism, which I still am very much a follower of the teachings of Christ. I don't find any conflict there between my Christian upbringing and my Buddhist studies. But yeah, I began studying that just for some way to find some peace within my mind. Yeah. And began studying that path for a decade or so, and ultimately ended up getting ordained as a Buddhist minister, and moving into mindfulness and meditation work in prisons and hospitals myself, as a matter of fact. And through that path, through my own spiritual path, and my own personal and spiritual development work, I ultimately found my way out of pornography, ended up hiring a coach in my 30s, earlier 30s, to really do the deep work and dig in and get this resolved for myself. So that's kind of how it all came together. And now I currently serve and support men in ending their own compulsive relationship with pornography in their lives.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for that background. We'll just jump right in with it. And my first question is, and you kind of sharing your story, just kind of maybe more in a playful way, messing around with porn at a younger age, and all of a sudden, it becomes addictive. But what have you found for men turning to porn? I say men, I mean, there's boys too, right? So, I mean, is it just curiosity? Is it, it's fun, exhilarating? Why? Like, why go to that versus, not going to it, I suppose? What have you found with that?
Well, yeah, boys, men, and women. We're finding even more so. A lot more women are coming forward and having issues with it as well, especially it being so easily and readily available on phones and computers today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're all introduced to it. Just sex is one of these just really base parts of our human nature. It's one of our primary drivers. It's how we all got here. So sex is a really intriguing part of our human makeup, I think, from an early age. So yeah, it's introduced to us. It's exciting. It's arousing. It's stimulating. It's intriguing. And oftentimes we're introduced to it, and it's innocent at first, but then for some of us, it becomes a way to deal with our emotions and to self-soothe and to check out of life, and I think to deal. And I think that's ultimately how our relationship with porn morphs and becomes less healthy as we grow into adulthood. It's something that stays with us, and it becomes something that we use to pacify ourselves or to meet certain needs.
Yeah. Interesting. On that note, meeting certain needs and the addiction, what's behind that beat with the addiction? Is it obviously the chemicals of the brain, and it just, what is that, in regards to why has it become addictive for I guess I'm more for men, but I guess it could be for women as well.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a relationship, I think, there between the relationship with porn and the dopamine that's released through.
Yes. Right.
So that's one. I think we're looking for that low hanging fruit. We're looking for that dopamine hit. So I think from a physiological, standpoint, I think that's what's going on there. But I think also is as I mentioned, we're meeting certain needs, and what I've identified is that, many of us have been using porn in order to meet needs in the same way that a drug addict may
Yeah.
use drugs in order to meet certain needs, or someone that has a compulsive relationship with food or
Yeah.
cigarettes or gaming or whatever it might be. It's a way to meet needs, and also a way to kind of check out or deal with life or deal with ourselves or deal with our emotions, or just general stimulation. I used to be a cigarette smoker, and as I grew more aware, more conscious, I kind of began to recognize that I wasn't smoking. I was oftentimes smoking just because I was looking for some kind of stimulation or I was bored. It was just like anything else. So I think we develop these habits of going to porn for a myriad of reasons, but it's always just to scratch an itch, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just mentioned this kind of earlier. I was just thinking about this whole, how easy it is now with everyone has, their device, right? You can jump on a phone and, when I was growing up, you didn't have the phone. I mean, if you were to see porn, it had to be somebody who had a VHS,
Right.
and
Yeah.
those were really, really rare. But are you finding any trends now where, maybe 25 years ago, I'm just throwing a number out there, I'm trying to think before the digital age here, or the mobile and all that, where now it's maybe the kids are starting earlier now with this potential porn stuff because it's so easy to
Yeah.
get to. I don't know if you're
Mhm.
seeing any of that with your conversations with the men that you're working with.
Yeah, for sure. And in the work that I'm doing, I have the pleasure, the honor of working with men from as young as like early 20s all the
Yeah.
way up into their 50s. So I'm seeing the
Yeah.
full spectrum.
Yep.
Yeah, and I definitely am seeing this trend. The young guys. I think earlier and earlier, kids are getting phones in their hands,
Yep.
and any kid that knows how to operate a phone, I'm sure, can circumvent whatever measures are in place and find whatever's out there. So
Yeah.
kids earlier and earlier ages are getting attached to their phone. The phone itself is an addiction. The
Yeah.
screen is an addiction. The
Yeah.
scrolling is an addiction.
Yeah.
And then, so that by itself is an addiction. But then we combine that with the sex drive, and then all
Yeah.
the sexual compulsions that can arise. So yeah, it's a really tricky kind of complex
Yeah.
situation, and it's at the touch of a button.
Yep.
At the touch of the fingertip at any point. And the issue is that kids don't realize that it's an issue or it's a problem or it's unhealthy until it's kind of out of control.
Yeah.
So, they may be dealing with that, in that behavior for many years before they kind of recognize that it's not healthy. And now they've kind of unleashed this beast that they got to try and get reeled back in.
Yeah. Isn't that the case? Yep.
If it's okay, I would love to just also say that we're also seeing that, because of that, from an early age, like porn is like shaping young boys and young kids about what sex is. I think it's doing a
Yeah.
lot of the sex education today. So creating potentially a lot of unrealistic expectations around sexuality,
Yep.
and also morphing sexuality in a great way from early age, because porn's one of those things that the genres continue to evolve.
Yes.
It's like any drug. Like the more you watch it, the harder stuff you need to see. And I
Yes.
think it just really creates an unhealthy and unrealistic expectation around sex. Also, we're seeing ED issues starting for guys at much earlier ages because of the desensitization that occurs as a result
wow.
of the heavy porn use. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. You mentioned 20 to even 50. Now, one of my questions is there a specific age group of men that might struggle with it a little bit more? And maybe not, but I was just curious if you found, like, is it the younger people? I mean, my assumption would be it would be the younger people, but maybe not. Maybe it is men in their 50s or 40s, that and maybe it's equal. Maybe the struggle is a struggle, but I was just
Mhm.
curious if you saw any trends with certain ages where, yeah, it's definitely a bigger struggle with men that are in their 30s versus their 40s. Maybe not. Maybe it's kind of an equal playing field. I'm not sure. I didn't notice anything there.
Yeah, I've not noticed anything in terms of like what age group seems to struggle with it more, or maybe who's using it more. But I will say, if we're going to use the word struggle, I think that men, whenever they reach a certain age and they begin to recognize that it's unhealthy for them, maybe again, for me, it was in my 30s. A lot of men that come to me and are really ready to make the commitment and do the work are in their 30s and beyond. They kind of recognize that it's unhealthy. They recognize it's affecting their sexuality, their social life, their emotional life, their spiritual life, their physical life. It's having all these adverse impacts.
Yeah.
They've tried to quit, but they continue to return. So I think
Mhm.
it's that age, like 30 plus, where we begin to have an awareness that it's not cool anymore. It's not just fun and innocent anymore. And
Yeah.
that's when they really begin to do the work and dig in around it. Also around that age, we're dealing with men that are more, husbands, fathers,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
they got something on the line. So like, I
Yeah.
really want to get this resolved for myself. So I think that's when we begin to see the desire for the shift to occur.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. What are you noticing? Like, what's the tipping point? What is it? There's got to be enough pain or enough on the line for them to want to create change. So what is that for men? Like, what is it? So let's say they've been doing this for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Why now all of a sudden? What have you
Mhm.
found that gave them the reason to go say, I need Matt, I need this program, I need to create some change here. What have you
Mhm.
found the reason is? Like, what's their why?
Yeah, that's it. In the work that we do, we dig deeply in around the relationship with porn, and we go back to that early stuff.
Yeah.
But so much of the work we do is around the why, Daryl.
Yeah.
That's a big piece of the puzzle, because that's really
Yeah.
a big piece of the long term, success. It's like, what's
Yeah.
going to carry you even beyond our work together? It's got to be a purpose filled life,
Yep.
something to live for.
Yeah.
And so many of our guys, that tipping point, as you mentioned, oftentimes it's I've been dealing with this for 30 or 40 years. I don't want to
Yeah.
want to grow to be a 50, 60-year-old man still dealing with this. It's
Yeah.
impacting my relationship with my wife. A lot of times men, they're on the brink of divorce.
Yeah.
They don't want to be, they want to be a better role model for their children.
Yeah.
And also, I think a lot of men find themselves in this real prison,
Yeah.
which with any addiction, I think we find ourselves in. We've continued to try to quit over and over again. It's something we have to hide and be secretive about our lives.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's usually I would say family driven, or something having to do with their role as a father or a man, or their sense of purpose.
Yeah.
That's oftentimes what guys come to me and said, you know what? I just know that I'm called to be and live my life in a different way. And I want to be the man that I'm called to be. And I know this isn't it. And I believe that porn is getting in the way for me now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I love that. Purpose is
Yeah.
key. Now you kind of hit on this, Matt, already, but I think we can kind of go a little bit deeper in it. And my question is the relationship between porn and men's mental health, the impact it's
Mhm.
having on their mental health. So I'm sure it's, well, I'll just ask the question, what impact is it having on their mental health? What have you seen with the group of men you've been working with because of, the dealing with porn?
Yeah. So mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, porn, for whatever reason, I think we could get into all the reasons that it seems to have this effect, but really adverse emotional impacts, anxiety, stress, low self-esteem, feelings of low self-worth, regret, remorse. Those are all low vibe, fear-based emotions and feelings that seem to come up around it. A
Yeah.
lot of times the guys, these guys know that porn is unhealthy and it's not in alignment or not integrity with the men that they want to be, yet they continue on. They continue to let themselves down over and over again. So I think, just general feelings of self-confidence seem to come up. Issues around, sexual confidence, social confidence all seem to come up. And of course, I think just generally, ejaculating like too much, like, some guys come to us, and they're masturbating 3-5 times a day, so I think excessive ejaculation results in depression or low energy and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
But those would be some of the common things that I see, Daryl.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Wow. All right. So we have a listener out there. He's been watching porn, but he's maybe struggling with, like, I'm not really addicted to it. I guess my
Right.
question is, like, are there signs? And maybe it's the obvious, maybe it's you're watching it every day, or, ejaculating 5 times a day over, from porn.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the sign, but maybe, maybe it's not. Maybe there's some earlier signs to that. So yeah, I mean, are there other signs outside of the obvious? To kind of like say, I've got an issue here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be happy to give you. There's a couple key indicators
Mm-hmm.
that I like to offer. One would be, now this takes some real honesty. Like it's like right in front of you, right? But oftentimes we don't see the things that are right in front of us. So I think it takes some looking, and it takes us just a willingness to be honest with ourselves. So first of all, I mean, look at your direct life impacts. Is it something that you can just see is impacting your marriage, your relationship? Maybe you're viewing pornography throughout the day, and then you go home at night and you don't have a desire to connect with your wife or your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're sneaking away and you're viewing pornography whenever you're supposed to be watching your kids, and you're just not present with them. you know?
Yeah.
Maybe you're sneaking away and using pornography in the bathroom at work or in the car, you know, or maybe you just as after you use porn, you experience these feelings of low self-worth, low self-esteem, low
Yeah.
self-confidence, low energy. You notice like a dip after and around pornography use. So you know, you kind of know that pornography is out of integrity with yourself and with your life and the way in which you're called to live. So there can be some kind of just immediate correlations you can begin to draw. So like those are some of the more obvious things that may be right in front of you.
Yeah.
So some other things that may be not as readily apparent, even though they are right there. And a couple of key signs I like to give guys. Another one would be if you've tried to quit, but you've been unsuccessful. You've told
Yeah.
yourself in the past that I'm going to quit. This doesn't feel like it's an alignment with me. It's not something I want to continue to do. And you say, you know what, I'm done. I know, like in my journey, many times I told myself I'm done, forget it. And I would go a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, but I would ultimately return for whatever
Yes.
reason.
Yeah.
You know, so we've tried to quit. We've told ourselves we're going to quit. We've made commitments to others to quit.
Yeah.
Maybe we've made a commitment to God to quit.
Yeah.
But we continue to return. So that would be a good one. We've tried or committed to abstaining, but we failed. And another one I think is really a good indicator. Is it something you're having to hide in your life?
Yeah.
Is it something that you're having to hide from your partner? Something you're having to hide from work? Something you're having to keep secretive? If someone knew about it, you know, if someone picks up your phone, you kind of get a little bit nervous, you know, you're
Yes.
nervous if someone saw your browser history, what they might find. So is it a secretive habit? Is it something that you're hiding or concerned about others finding out about in your life? That would be another indicator.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So you kind of hit on this already with married men, but I'm just curious the impact it's playing with a married man. You know, they're addicted to porn, and just to kind of add to that. I mean, should men come out and tell their wives? You know, should they not? You know, I just what's the best step there? Obviously, it's impacting their marriage. I
Yeah.
think you mentioned divorce possibly, or the brinks of a divorce. So obviously,
Yeah.
it's having a major impact on it. But how do they just deal with it themselves for a little bit, knowing that it's making an impact with their marriage? Yeah. So anything around the impact it's making on marriage, and maybe some things that they should consider thinking about to how to face it. You know.
Yeah. It's a big question. You know what? Porn is one of those things that has a lot of shame
Hmm.
and guilt and crap around it, you know? So it's one of those things that we very often deal with by ourselves because of the taboo,
Yeah.
the stigma around it. So it's tough to bring out around others. Maybe it might be difficult for someone to bring up to their wife because they feel like it's something I've been lying about. They may feel
Yeah.
like cheating in a sense, you know what I mean? If
Yes.
their wife
Yeah.
finds out, she's gonna be jealous or mad or something that a husband's been hiding. So it's tough to bring up, but I think ultimately, um, in the work that we do, we run an online community, and we find it so healthy for men to begin talking about this stuff, to begin to share this stuff, to bring that which has been in the darkness for so long into the light,
Yeah. Yeah.
and reveal it. So I think ultimately, I think if a man is really ready to make a change, I mean, I think within any marriage, ongoing secrets are detrimental,
Yeah.
So I think ultimately, yeah, bringing it up with the partner. But
Yep.
I think if you're going to bring it up with the partner, like be sure that it's something you want to resolve and change.
Y-
Because I think if you
Yeah.
bring it up, there it may impact the levels of trust
Yeah.
in the relationship. And I think if you bring it up, it's going to be like, you know what, this has been an issue, but it's also something I'm willing to commit to and to resolve, and also to be accountable around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think ultimately it would be healthy to
Yeah.
bring it up, especially if it's impacting you, it's impacting the marriage, and you just want to, you know, take that burden off your own shoulders a bit, and maybe share it with maybe one of the closest relationships in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, anything you share like that, you're gonna be held accountable, right? I mean, if we keep it to ourselves, then it's easy for us to not hold ourselves accountable. But I also think, maybe when it's right for them, maybe they're working with you first, and just really getting because ultimately it's them, right? It's something going on with them that they need to resolve. But I think eventually speaking with their wife about it at some point would probably make a lot of sense. So yeah, very good points there. What about single men? I mean, obviously it's got to be making an impact on single men too. I mean, they're, you know, I mean, do single men that are addicted to porn, do they really want to seek an intimate having a partner, or, does this totally get in the way that they believe that they can't? But it's got to be blocking them from taking, from having, and maybe, yeah, blocking them and keeping them single. And I don't know if they want to stay single because they feel like their needs are being met or not. So, probably, how's it impacting a single male?
Yeah, that's tricky, man. I think there's definitely impact there. I know for myself, whenever I decided to hire a coach and really do the deep work and make the investment and dig in and get into accountability and community, I believe I was single around that time. I had recently gotten out of a relationship. For myself, I was recognizing that porn was affecting like every relationship that I had had for the past, decade or so prior to that.
Yeah.
And for me, I didn't want to continue to get into relationships and kind of have that as a burden.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a reason to not get into a relationship, but I definitely think it could impact you, potentially have a negative effect in terms of
Yeah.
your ability or interest in getting into a relationship.
Yeah.
Porn's one of those things, it has a way of kind of keeping us socially secluded.
Yep. Yes.
I know times in my own life I would, it was not like I was trying to do this, but I would find that I would stay in and I'd be in front of the computer on a Friday or Saturday night versus getting out and really connecting
Yes.
socially in healthy ways,
Yeah.
So I think it can impact us there. It can certainly impact our drive to get out there. It can make us more socially awkward. It can make us more sexually awkward.
Yep.
So yeah, I think, but again, the thing is being single, it's kind of tricky because you're like, well, I'm not in a relationship. It's not having an adverse effect right now. Maybe you're kind of just taking care of yourself, so you don't really feel the drive to get into a relationship. Maybe you'll say, I'll get it resolved once I get into a relationship, or hey, I need to take care of my own needs right now because I'm not in a relationship.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have a lot on the line, such as a father or a husband, as we kind of talked about earlier in our conversation.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, yeah, man, for me, getting porn resolved in my own life was like one of the best, healthiest things I could have ever done, in terms of the way in which I show up in my relationships, so like, sexually, the level of presence I provide in a relationship.
Yeah.
I think it generally makes you more attractive, like in the ways that maybe you can't even see,
Yeah.
to women. I think it affects our level of integrity with ourselves, so we show up more powerfully and more confidently in relationships. So yeah, I'd say, you don't have to get it resolved, but I say, if you're single, man, get it resolved and watch the way in which it impacts, the levels at which you're showing up in relationship and your confidence in them and your general level of attraction, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It's very holistic. I'm hearing you say it's just not one area of their life. This is impacting, probably their work, everything, who they are in this world,
Yeah.
So it's very holistic and impacting a deeper part of them in all areas of their lives.
100%.
Yeah. I'm just curious, what is the addiction? Is it like 50% of men have problem, 10% of men? Do you have a number on that? Do you know like the general population of who's struggling with this? That's a tougher one. But
I've seen an old statistic. I saw an old statistic that 200,000 men in the United States were like identified as porn addicts, but I think that's a really low number.
Yeah.
I can tell you one statistic that I think is really big out there is that 50% of divorces say that pornography played an impact in the role of their divorce.
Wow.
That's a really staggering statistic out there.
Big time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah. Curious about the interrelationship that for men that are addicted to porn, are they also struggling with something else? Does it lead into alcohol? Does it lead into smoking? Does it lead into, watching too much TV or, stuff like that? I'm just curious if if you got this, then you're opening the gate to potential other things that would support it. Did you see that at all in your journey with working with other men?
Yeah, I can say that there are some correlating behaviors or some associations that I've identified for sure.
Yeah.
One being a correlation between oftentimes if someone has an unhealthy relationship with porn, they also have unhealthy relationships with food, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Sex and our sex drive and our hunger drive take place in similar places in the brain. Very basic primal drivers. So I see a correlation there. I also find that we soothe ourselves and take care of ourselves emotionally with food and sex in similar ways.
Yeah.
I fast pretty regularly, and I notice that oftentimes whenever I feel like on my fast days, I notice like whenever these emotions and urges come up for food, it's very similar to the urges and impulses that I have that come up for me around sex. And I also found that as I get my eating dialed in and my emotional eating dialed in, I'm it affects the way in which I'm able to kind of get my sexual impulses dialed in. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of guys, they overeat and go to porn. It's like they self-medicate with food, and then it leads to going to porn. Very often we see that correlation. I also see a lot of guys with hard and heavy drug use. So alcohol or cocaine, they'll one fuels the other. They'll start with that and then end with the other. A lot of times, the guys will be doing good, then they'll get on a alcohol or drug bender, and then end the night on these big long porn binges. That's one I hear as well. And also general screen fixations. So spending too much time on the phone, in front of Netflix, gaming, all similar kind of family of triggers. So those would be the three that I'd see: food, drugs and alcohol, and screen.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. So does one fix the other then? Have you seen men who specifically are working through and getting through the addiction of porn? It must support benefits to the others when they see that drop as well, I would imagine, right? So kind of like you throw one rock and hit two birds type of thing here, or not? Maybe not. Maybe I take one. Maybe I take one at a time. I don't know, but just curious.
I see a correlation between food and porn. I'm not sure which would come first. The what do they call it? The chicken or the egg on that?
Right.
But I see for myself, again, as I've gotten my relationship with food in line, my relationship with my sexuality and porn has gotten in line. At least my tendency to overindulge and to binge has gotten in line. I also know, like whenever I was using porn regularly, I'd go to porn. It would make me feel kind of crappy about myself. My self-esteem would drop. My energy levels would drop. Therefore, all the other bad habits would follow. I'd be more likely to binge eat and binge on the screen and kind of continue to act in ways that are self-sabotaging, frankly. So for the food and porn, I see one kind of fueling the other. I'm not sure which would come first there. The drugs and alcohol, I would say there could be a similar correlation there. But I often find that if a guy's doing well, if he ends up drinking that night, or he's got an issue with porn and he ends up intoxicated late night, oftentimes the porn follows there. And in regard to the screen, I think anything we can do to get off our screens more. The screen itself is a trigger. Being on social media itself is a trigger. Scrolling is a trigger. Even if there's nothing new there, it just seems to fire up the same stuff in the brain, man. It's really interesting.
Well, I think you just answered one thing, Matt, what you were saying earlier. I wrote down tactics to block like that right there. Like, should they get off social? I mean, like delete Facebook, delete Instagram, whatever else, platform is out there. I mean, I don't think that's going to be the real result here. I have another follow-up question here about deeper issue. I think that's where resolve is really going to come from. But up on the surface, just for some quick little tactics. I mean, what are there little tactics that you could say, hey, I remember I was watching a movie and the guy, I can't remember what movie it was, but basically the role he was playing, this character he was addicted to sex, and he removed his TV when he got into his room because he knew. He starts going through the TV, that triggers something, and before I know it, he's So any tactics? I know, like I said, I don't think that's the real result, but anything that you could throw out there that you found will help.
Yeah, I agree. That's like one of those things. It's like there's something deeper that's going on, and the porn is really just the symptom.
Yes.
But with that, I think anything we can do just to remove the triggers for our life. And we run a 90-day program, and we go through all these kind of different areas. We'll spend a whole week on doing this exercise we call clean up the field. And we just go through our environment and we work to remove triggers. Some guys, it's deleting all social media off their phone, oftentimes even Safari, even their web browser, because there's access there. We'll get a partner involved and we'll put a blocker on their phone or a password so they can't even install those apps anymore, and they can't even install Safari anymore.
Sure.
without, now it's inconvenient. It's not,
Yeah.
might not feel that practical, but I always say if we could take our phones and throw them into the woods, like for most of us guys, most of our problems would be resolved. It's that
It's
phone that is
amazing.
very, very
Yeah.
triggering. It's that
Right.
temptation that's in your pocket 24
Yeah.
hours a day.
Yeah.
So if we could get that resolved, it would take care of so much. But as you mentioned, there are deeper, kind of more underlying issues going on there. But yeah,
Yeah.
not having screens in the bedroom,
Yep.
really monitoring and regulating our screen time. I
Yep.
think I think is a big one as well. We use different kinds of accountability software,
Yep.
which monitors and blocks and holds men accountable on their phones. But the thing is, there's always ways around that, So
Yeah.
we got to get to that deeper
Yeah.
root issue. But
Yeah.
those would be a couple quick things. Just work to remove, even for myself. Even I have accountability software on my devices currently,
Mm-hmm.
and even on like YouTube. It's really simple. I have parental control settings set up, so I only get like PG suggestions. I don't get the booty shaking video suggestions anymore.
Right.
I don't get like the adult content. Not that I can't go out and find it, but I just have less triggering stuff in my environment. I find
Absolutely.
just to
Yeah.
create a more holy environment has just been very healthy for me. My mind just goes there less.
Yeah.
And there's things we can do that all throughout our environment that just set us up for more success, Daryl.
Yeah. That brings up another thought about once I want to say it. Yeah, we have addictive personalities. I mean, is that something that men need to realize, that this is not a quick fix? It's like, this is kind of how you're wired, and going forward in life, you just kind of set yourself up to be successful and realize that this is something that it might get a little bit easier as you're removing it from your life, right? Because then you're building some new muscle over here, good muscle, more purpose in life, and you're focusing on different things. And I do believe in rewiring the brain, and I'm sure through your studies and your path, you're probably coaching and teaching that as well. But anyway, just the reality is this is not a long-term strategy. This is not a quick thing, right? I mean, you gotta, and maybe that's part of the problem with accountability with some of the men is they intellectually probably know that this is a big challenge for me. And do I have what it takes, to go through this and have some success? But anyway, that's just a general comment, and it's not really a question there, but I don't know if you agree or disagree that, or have seen that addictive personality is the wiring of the brain, and it's gonna take a while to rewire that, and it might always kind of be there. So it's got to be ready for that.
Yeah, it really is a long-term game. The guys that come into our work, I always like to set that expectation. I say, I wish I could give you the magic pill or the silver bullet. You could take it and have this resolved for yourself, or you come to me and I've got all the answers. But it really is about personal transformation. It's about installing a new software. It's about adopting a new philosophy, a new way of life, new habits, behaviors, new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing the world, new ways of seeing ourselves. That's why our work is so much about, again, as I mentioned, we do this deep work around the root relationship with pornography and get to those root needs that are trying to be met. But it's really about personal transformation and conscious evolution of the man, helping the man step into, the man that he knows he's called to be, and moving from that child that may still reside in him sexually into the conscious adult that's oriented, by a true north,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. You said some really key things here that really hit me. Like, you mentioned deep work, right? Just doing the work. I mean, that's something I want to put out there for all the listeners. If you're working with me, it's my biggest thing is it's inner work for men. It's, if you want to create transformation and create change, it's all starts right here with yourself. And it can be the most transformational, most empowering process of just putting yourself there and going through it. Not always enjoyable, whether it's food, weight, porn addiction, whatever it may be, or just wanting to, take your whole life to a whole nother level. It's hard to get that next level with these big anchors, on your feet. So I just want to encourage, I'm just throwing it out there to encourage men, if you're having this challenge, and we're going to talk about Matt's program here, or one of his programs. You kind of hit on it already, but before we go there, just the deeper issue, right? I don't know if we can really answer that right now, but I guess we just want to put out there that this is not a quick fix, right? There's a deeper issue going on that may have started, way back when you were a little boy or something. I don't know what it was, but isn't that true? I mean, you got to go deeper to really fix this thing. This is not a quick surface thing here, right? This is something that's deeper, that all men are going to have to take that journey to figure that out.
Yeah, and I think it's a little different for everyone. For
Yeah.
a lot of boys, it started with just early childhood sexual trauma,
Yeah.
oftentimes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be trauma. It doesn't mean necessarily that you were molested or you had an adverse sexual experience as a kid. It could be maybe you were just dealing. You just learned to deal with your emotions and learn to deal with life via your sexuality. Maybe you were provided porn at a young age, and because of your personality type or whatever was going on for you in your life, you really took to it, and it became something that you used to take care of yourself, to soothe yourself, to meet certain needs, to check out of life,
Hmm.
and yeah. So I think there's a real emotional maturity that needs to come there. I think there's a correcting that needs to take place there, and oftentimes there's healing that needs to take place there. So as you mentioned, deep work, yeah, it's going in and really identifying, how have I been using pornography to meet certain needs? Where did it originate? We don't spend forever there, but I
Yeah.
think creating clarity on that allows us to kind of turn on the lights in the dark room and create some awareness around.
Yes.
Oh, I see what I'm attempting to. That's not really a sexual need I'm attempting to meet. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling isolated. I'm feeling scared. I'm using porn to de-stress.
Yeah.
I'm using porn because I'm lacking intimacy in my life.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
times those needs are not front of mind. Kind of awareness.
Yeah.
We have to create understanding around that, insight
Yeah.
around that.
Yeah. And I just want to emphasize awareness. I've said it in my coaching now for 16 years. And I said, I call them dog years. I said, once you're aware and you're conscious, then you can create transformation in your life. Then you can create change.
Mm-hmm.
But it becomes unconscious. There's probably a lot of men out there that just don't even, they just go to the porn and I mean, maybe they do feel remorse and shame a little bit after, whatever, but to some point they're just going to it, kind of like eating, you don't even realize you're doing it, but you're doing it. So
Exactly.
yeah.
I like to say it's the same reason if you've ever found yourself in front of the refrigerator at 12 o'clock at night, you're not really hungry, but you're just looking for something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're looking for a fix. So
Yeah.
there's something underneath that.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit more. You mentioned you got a 90-day liberation boot camp, a 10-day porn absence challenge.
Hmm.
Yeah, your community making peace with porn. So, where can the men go to find you? And yeah, I think, if this hopefully if this is something that they need to resolve, where can they find you? And maybe talk a little bit about your programs.
Sure. Thanks so much, Daryl. Yeah. So one of the easiest ways to find me is I do run a community of men. We got about like 700 men from all over the world right now on Facebook. It's called
Nice.
Making Peace with Porn. It's a private men's only community. We
Yep.
really vet the guys that come in there, make sure that, the men that come in are men of character and they're really about coming in and doing the work. We want to make sure people feel safe in that community and
Yeah.
it's a place for them to come in and share. But yeah, we've got a lot of regular conversation, community accountability support going on in there. Right now we are running a challenge. We run a challenge usually every month or every couple months.
Yeah.
We do these extended week-long plus porn abstinence challenges. We're running one right now where we support the guys in making the commitment to 7 or more days
Yeah.
abstinence from porn. We give them daily live training in the group, in the community.
Awesome.
So we've got that. That's a great place to connect and just to kind of begin to open up around the conversation.
Yep.
So that's one. We do offer a 90-day intensive program for the men that kind of recognize that they're ready to make a commitment and dive in and do that deeper work. It's called the Liberation Boot Camp.
Yeah.
So that's a more intensive program, kind of a
Yep.
hybrid group, working
Yep.
one-on-one with me, everything like that. And you can always just reach me directly at makingpeacewithporn@gmail.com if you have a more direct or immediate need. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Fantastic. And maybe you can send me some links. I can put it down in the show notes as well
That'd be
for
great.
people. Yeah, for people to find. And I love the process you have. It's the 10-day of absence, and
Yeah.
I think that's for hopefully for most men that realize maybe it's awareness is going up that there's a problem here. It's like, okay, I can do 10 days, and
Yeah.
and then they get to 10 days and then start looking at the 90-day, maybe do 10 days again or next time you do it, but just give
Exactly.
that something that's bite sized and they feel like they can handle, but still probably very challenging. So I love that process. You're not just saying, hey, jump into the 90-day, because that might be overwhelming, overbearing for some men. So I'm glad you got that 10-day first and
Yeah.
then work into the bigger commitment,
Yes, that's
so
right.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, any other thoughts? Really, this is, like I said, real men, real conversations. And this is a real conversation. This is stuff out there that's holding men back. I also want to encourage too, just for anyone listening out there, that the reason why I really started to focus mostly on men as, my own journey of coaching both men and women. I worked with Tony Robbins for 7 years, and I've coached a lot of people. I just noticed, and just being a man, that we need that connection. We need that peer group. They say men sharpen men. So reach out to Matt, get into his group, or any other group out there that can, as long as they're like-minded and they want to change for the better. Don't go to a group where there's a bunch of bitching going on, and there's no ownership. I'm not an advocate for that, but men need other peer groups. We need to be around, and we need to know that we're not alone by ourselves and whatever it is that we're struggling with. There's other men struggling with it too. So I just want to, put that out there in regards to, it's awesome that, Matt, you've got your programs. So awesome with that. Any other thoughts though? Any other comments you want to share and wrapping things up?
Yeah, I really appreciate that, brother. Thanks so much for having me today. Yeah, I fully agree. Our whole philosophy, we have this code we live by. It's called the Noble Code, and we recite it at the beginning of all of our calls. And it's all about personal responsibility and personal power. Really beginning to take ownership for our life and all the conditions in our life and everything that's going on for us. So really beginning to own that and step into our power. Such a big piece of the puzzle. And around the conversation of porn, if you identify with any of those things, you're like, yeah, it is something that I'm having to hide from, in my life, from my partner, from others, or something I have kind of recognized it's something I want to quit, but I haven't been able to. Yeah, jump into the community, give a challenge a shot, see if you can make it 5 days. And if nothing else, give yourself the opportunity to see what it feels like 5 days porn free. I used to be a smoker, and I don't realize how crappy smoking made me feel until I quit. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Same thing with you don't realize how dehydrated oftentimes you are until you start drinking more water. So it's kind of one of those things, but give yourself a chance to experience that contrast and, what do you got to lose? So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, brother, thanks for being with us and my Real Men, Real Conversations. Appreciate your all your input, and this is amazing stuff. So I wish you well as you continue your journey and making an impact on so many men's lives. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Thanks so much, Daryl. It's been an honor to be here.
You bet. Thanks a lot.
Yes.